It's Friday. We're here. Everyone is pleased, I'm sure, that it's the end of the week. For those of us who work Monday to Friday, for those of you who are working over the weekend, I hope you have a great weekend. It's been a long and interesting couple of weeks. We missed last week's episode. My apologies for that. But we did have that great interview with Andreas Rue about Astro Inferno, which I'm super excited about. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that a lot more in the after party. So if you're watching live, or if you're playing catch up by any chance, come and check us out on Twitch after this show. And we have an after party where our patrons from Patreon come and chat, and we all just hang out and talk about all sorts of geeky rubbish, including but not limited to RPGs that we're excited about, movies, and all that sort of stuff. But for now, it's Kickstart Your Weekend. It's time for us to talk about 3 exciting projects and what we think about them. I do very quickly want to call out, and we'll talk about this probably a couple more times throughout the show, that it is a troubling time right now globally. At time of recording, Free Ligan, Free League Publishing, have announced that on their web store, anything that we purchase right now, they're providing 50% of their proceeds are going to Ukraine relief funds. The details of that are in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. So please check that out. There was an itch.io bundle for Ukraine as well, which just finished today. So unfortunately, I can't plug that. But, basically, we hope that everyone who's watching is okay. And, what more can we do? Let's just try and do our best to embrace the global community and do our best. So with Devious Dungeons, Foreboding Forests, and the Coolest Cats, my name is Phil. Welcome to the Dark Orb. Hey, and we're joined with Joel. Great to see you, Joel. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And you, this Friday evening?
I'm all right. Nothing that a holiday would not repair. Holiday is not in my immediate future. However, UK Games Expo is in 3 months. That'll have to do. 2.5 months. So
GothCon is only 1.5 months away.
Yeah, it's also geographically a little bit not local.
I think maybe you and I have the same distance
to
really? GothCon.
I shall have a look at this.
Probably not, but it's...
It feels like it.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be driving though, right? But you're driving, right? Or are you flying?
No, I'm taking the train.
And
since I'm an old fart, I'm going to arrive a day early, just relax.
Oh, God, yeah.
And have an easy day, wake up and go there in the morning fresh. And
This is the way. We have a hotel booked for Games Expo. And if you're coming to UK Games Expo, please come and say hello. If you're a fan of the show. If you're not a fan of the show, then come and say hello, but be nice. I'm delicate. But also, if you're excited about any of the products that we're going to talk about today, please hit like and subscribe and follow and ring the bell and all that sort of stuff. But we will be at Games Expo. We don't have a table or any of that sort of rubbish. But I'm easy to spot. I'll have this on. We have a couple of people live. Hi, folks. We've got Jason and Sanjuro are both viewing, and we have a few more. Goodman Games are doing something similar. Are they? Okay, we'll check that out as well. Goodman Games are doing a charity thing for Ukraine. Is that physical books as well? So the cool thing about what Free Ligan are doing is that I believe anything from their web store, including physical product and Foundry and all that sort of stuff, is all included in the bundle, which is really nice of them.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, everything on the site, the store, meaning art books, non-RPG books, board games, dice. If you buy anything from the store, their web store, 50%. It pushed me from, I want that thing, to, I'm going to buy it. So I spent way too much money today on Alien. Am I going to run it? Maybe. I've been a player of it. I like it. So
Alien is nice. I ran it at a con, actually. It's my first con game was Alien at Dragon Meet a while ago now. And yeah, it went really well. But something about it doesn't draw me back. I can't really put my finger on it. It's a great system. People who wrote it are wonderful. I love the IP. So I can't really put my finger on it. I think it's just I don't really love running sci-fi games. I seem more drawn to fantasy, even though when it comes to reading books or absorbing, movies or whatever, I actually gravitate towards science fiction, not fantasy. But when it comes to running a game, it seems to be the other way around. I don't know.
As long as I can mix horror into it, it doesn't matter which setting. Give me the horror part in the game.
Yep.
I'm in.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think you've just announced where we need to start. Let's start with looking at this really interesting project, which shares some similarities to some other games that we've seen and talked about on this show before. Let's have a look at VHS Very Horror Stories. I'm really on the fence about this. It is a role-playing game. It's come out of Italy, and we've seen some really great role-playing games come out of Italy in English recently. A couple that spring to mind. We had the actual play a few weeks ago of Necropathic, which Mitchell Wallace GM'd for us. If you haven't seen that, please check it out. It's great. Biotech, body mod, body horror, post-apocalyptic dystopian role-playing game that is founded in an Italian role-playing game, which is a slightly smaller production, and Mitch has brought it over and really jazzed it up and turned it into something even more special. So that's awesome. And then you have Broken Compass, which is also it's by Two Little Mice and is an Italian and English role-playing game, principally in Italian and then I think translated, and they're both fabulous. So much like as we know, and obviously Joel is going to be slightly biased here, but Sweden has got this great role-playing tradition, and we're seeing these Swedish games come into English now. There are a few Italian games which, to me, is a little bit of an interesting divergence.
I forgot probably the biggest one.
The
One Ring.
The One Ring. Yeah, true. Francesco Novatelli. That's a very good point. But that's now a Swedish game, so it doesn't really count.
Not published by a Swedish company. It doesn't make it Swedish.
Oh, I think you're disowning it.
No, I'm not. But I would be surprised if Francesco could speak a full sentence in Swedish no matter what.
I mean, he can probably ask for beer and wine now.
No. He doesn't need to, even if he's here in Sweden.
That's true. As long as he can speak English, it doesn't matter. Jason just said, Goodman Games have made a donation to assist Ukraine in their fight. So, I mean, thank you, Goodman Games. And we will be talking about a Goodman Games product later on. Well, a Goodman Games adjacent product, Purple Sorcerer. But let's go back to VHS, Very Horror Stories. Now, what this is it's a bunch of role-playing game books. There's boxes. There are 3 of them, and they have 3 different settings. I'm just scrolling down to get those settings up. But the idea is basically the GM is directing a horror movie, and this may sound familiar. As I said, there are some other products that are quite similar. Directing a horror movie, and the settings are, it says, still scrolling, Bloodlust, which is the slasher movies from the 70s and 80s. So you're looking at Candyman, Friday the 13th, Child's Play, Saw, that sort of thing. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then the other settings are Overplay, which is things like Alien, Predator, The Thing, science fiction, horror movies. And then the third setting is Unchained. So this is your religious horror stuff. So Hellraiser, Evil Dead, Pumpkinhead, that sort of stuff, which is slightly different again. And the concept, as I said, is that your GM is effectively the director of the movie, and the players are playing characters in the movie. So that your various areas that you have physical maps for, if you get the physical version, are referred to as sets, and the monsters and the characters have got little character sheets, and characters are, well, if you want to do a challenge, a skills test as a character, it's roll 2d6, roll under the trait score, and that's probably modified. I didn't quite get that far in reading the rules. Modified by the difficulty of the challenge you're trying to do. But presuming that's the case, yeah, hit your roll and you win, and you get to do your challenge. Monsters, from what I could gather, and I did kind of run out of time prepping, I'm afraid, basically have some powers which are fueled by the fear of the characters. And so as the characters get more scared, and there are mechanics for this, like treading into an area where there is a larger fear area, for example, and I think the more scared you are when you make that transition, the greater the jump. That fear fuels the monsters to be able to do whatever it is that they can do based on their character sheet. Should we have a quick look at the video?
Sure.
I'll try and bring the volume down a bit. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And what you get in the box, if you go for the physical version, which you don't have to, obviously, you don't have to go for any version if you don't want to, is quite a lot of tactile stuff. The box for each video looks like a VHS, and inside that is another box that acts like a liner, which I quite like. And then you get a whole bunch of physical stuff. So you get a 100-page plus rulebook, some character sheets for monsters and for the characters. 4 main sets, so it's 4 A3 maps, bunch of tokens, and there are dice as well that are available. The horror configuration, and they've got these other add-ons like spin-offs and a deluxe slipcase, which makes it look like the old VHS box sets that you used to get. Movie posters and stuff. There's information about the rules further down. Let me see if I can find it. There's a lot of stuff on this page, which I actually really appreciate, and there's lots of stretch goals, and it's doing pretty well. So there's some information about the rules here, to some extent. So monster can appear at any time, drive characters to their lair. Tests are, as I said, it's a 2d6 roll under, based on what's on your character sheet. Now, the other thing to be aware of, then you have the game session, your introduction, and the first scare. So this is really in the format of a horror movie, which I think is quite cool. I don't watch a lot of horror, by the way. You get conditions. The film is 2 to 4 hours long, and what's interesting is for each of those boxes, and there are 3 boxes, don't forget, I think it said there are 8 films. So there's actually quite a lot of content. That's potentially 24 scenarios spread across 3 genres, which is pretty nice. I quite like that. There's a solo mode, and this solo mode is what then interests me. So, Yoel, when we were in the green room, you mentioned another game.
Yeah, it's reminding me a lot of Final Girl, which is a board game that has the same aesthetics.
Yes.
Or very similar aesthetics, and also is 80s horror movies. You play different films, different film tropes.
Yeah.
So if this Kickstarter were to be called Final Girl the RPG,
Neither of us would be too excited. Surprised.
No, it would have fitted perfectly.
I agree. Now,
but I'm quite intrigued anyway, because when it comes to RPGs, the horror geek I am, I buy way many more game systems than I ever intend to run, because horror games has a tendency to very easily be adapted, or you can strip parts of it into other games or a system that you prefer, because this game system itself very seldom is the important part of the gaming.
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm thinking about this one. Do you think it would tie you down to using the system presented, or would it be easily adapted to other systems?
It's a
I'm
very
not
good
saying
question.
that I'm gonna do an adaptation, but would it be possible?
I'm not sure. I haven't gotten through all of the quick start yet, but it's a really good question. Let me just draw your attention to this. So there is a link to this document on the Kickstarter campaign, and there's quite a lot of information here. So this is where perhaps we would find those answers. So you have page 6 is the rules. So I would guess that if you can boil your monster down to the statistics, the stats that are required, you could probably do anything. So here's an example of a character sheet.
And this is the great part about running RPG horror games.
Yes.
The statistics doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Give me a second.
He's disappeared. I hope he's making me a sandwich. I'm starving. Oh, clearly not.
No, clearly not.
Hang on, let me embiggen you.
Yeah, this is an old school example of something similar, but not quite. These are for Call of Cthulhu 5th edition, I believe. It's from the 90s. And what it is basically horror movies, horror cliche movies, scenarios meant to do one-shots, using the Cthulhu game system. That is not Mythos. So, like in this one, you have the classical Romero zombie movie, which in the 90s was fresh and not abused to death, pun intended. You have one of the scenarios is a silent horror movie. The players are not allowed to speak. And this is, for me, an example of, for instance, where the game system itself is a facilitator and not the core thing of the game. And for most horror games, that is the case. So thinking about it, I'm getting more and more enticed about backing the very horror story.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting.
It is. What's keeping me a little bit on the fence is very horror story, as was written in the Discord. It doesn't really sound that good in English.
It really doesn't. They've really kind of
No.
tried hard to make it work.
Yes, and there are better solutions to get the
Yes.
VHS abbreviation.
Agreed.
So,
and I think that's one of my concerns. Having read through some of their, sorry to cut you off, having read through some of the campaign and some of this book, the ideas are there, and if you take a step back, you can deconstruct what's being said, but there are areas where, unfortunately, it's clear that English isn't the primary language, and I hope that they get a fluent speaker to actually kind of proofread and help, because I mean it's fine. Let me just say that first of all, actually, this quick start is beautiful, so I don't want to take away from that, but there are points, and we see this also in other games that are translated, even in things like Frioligan's Symbarum and anything that actually, regardless of whether it's but even if it's not, even if it's English as a native language for the writer, you do sometimes get this anyway. So I'm talking crap, but there are points in this book where sentences actually don't flow at all, and the words are there, but they're not in the right order, or a thesaurus has been used to pick a word that doesn't actually. It's not a natural word to be used in the manner in which it's used. So I'm not going to give any specific examples, but that does happen, and it would be good. Hopefully, they'll get a native speaker of any kind of English dialect to just go through and just make sure that everything is okay as part of their proofreading. But there's nothing major there that needs to be done. I think it's really quite pretty. There's a lot of words just even on that quick start, and I do recommend checking the quick start out. We should talk about pricing, because that's where things start to get complex. So if you want to have this in the digital set, and I think that means Roll20, because one of the quick start things that I was looking at was a Roll20 guide with a bunch of assets. So hopefully that means pre-configured in Roll20. Then you're looking at £30, 35 euros, which is really good. In fact, I think that's undercharging for the product. For all three films, or all three settings, I would presume that's all 8 for each of those. So that seems like a real devaluing of what's here, if I'm honest. I think they could probably charge 15 euros for each of these easily. But if you want it physical, it jumps to £81, 95 euros. And then for 130, you get the limited. So 130 euros, 110 pounds. You get all of those physical boxes, plus some extra add-ons, plus a dice, plus a deluxe slipcase and movie poster, etc. And obviously, we know there's something called a full edition, and it will be that. But I actually think that because this level is too low, and there's no individual option to just buy one of those boxes on its own, it actually makes the other products, the physical bundles, seem artificially high when I don't think they're overpriced. Does that make any sense? I see a nod, but you're muted, so I presume you got some background noise.
I had. I can understand your logic, but also it is the difference between physical and digital is it's not a straight line.
No.
So if you want the physical, you might have to pay double, triple, quadruple for the same content.
Well, yes, but actually I don't think that the cost of the product is mostly physical, unless they've massively undercharged for their physical. Quite often, actually, the cost of the product is in the art and the layout and all that sort of stuff, and the writing. And so I think actually more companies should go towards, and not to the same extent, but go towards the Monty Cook approach of charging more for the digital product. Not as much as Monty Cook does, maybe, but more generally, because actually that PDF or those Roll20 assets have value. The IP has value, and I actually think that we should move towards the situation where those products are slightly more expensive. And considering you're getting 24 scenarios here, 24 adventures for 35 euros, whatever it is. I mean, that's amazing value, but I actually think it's undervaluing the product probably.
Or I would say take a look at how Chaosium handles PDF versus physical.
Yes.
They do it even smarter because they sell a new product in PDF form first before they even print anything. And if you buy the PDF, you get a discount of the physical.
Yeah, that's where they've said, okay, we think the IP itself is worth this. And if you want it printed, if you want us to print it for you, then we'll charge you, the physical bit, if you like, and the logistics bit. And I really like that
also
model.
they do the prints afterwards because they sell the new product digital first with a discount for the physical that comes months later. And then they also can judge how well the product performed, which print run they should do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant, in my opinion.
I agree. So that is VHS Very Horror Stories. It's got 13 days to go. I'm genuinely interested in it. Personally, I won't be backing it purely because I know that I won't get the opportunity to run it. The groups that I have, it's hard enough to get something like Cults to the table. I won't get value for money myself, but actually I really, really love it. I think it's great.
I'm getting more and more inclined to backing it.
Give the quick start a good read. And there's a lot of words there. You can read it in Italian if you like, just to make yourself feel better. And let us know. Maybe next week or the week after in the after party. Let us know whether or not you decided to take the plunge. I think that's probably the best way to move forward on that one. But if you like horror movies, you like role-playing games, check it out. Final Girl, on the other hand, is also a great product that's been out for ages. That's a solo tabletop board game. So if you really like the look of this, you kind of like the idea of a solo game, but you want something a bit more board game and a little bit less role-playing, you have this. This is amazing. Check Final Girl out as well. They're different, so you don't have to think I can only get one or the other. I think they bring different traits to the table, and they both look excellent. And Bruce Sanjuro Chikage has been on our show before talking about Final Girl. He'll be back on probably on the after party on Twitch at some point, so we can ask him how he's getting on with that because he's probably played it by now.
Several times, as far as I know.
Excellent. Well, check out the after party on twitch.tv/the Dark Orb UK. And at some point, we'll talk to Bruce about Final Girl. Let's crack on to the next product. Let's go with Purple Sorcerer, Red Specters of the Shrieking Vale. This one should be fairly quick to talk about, if I'm honest. Purple Sorcerer were, I think, the first third-party publisher to produce licensed content for Dungeon Crawl Classics. And this Kickstarter represents two products that are intertwined. Dread Specters of the Shrieking Vale, which is a first-level adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics for 5th edition or any OSR game, really. And it's based, as you can see at the top here, it's based on inspired by the folklore of Southeast Asia. And I think you're thrown into a jungle, basically, and you have to deal with the horrors that are there. The Field Guide to the Great Jungle, on the other hand, is a source book all about the setting that adventure is in, and it includes the setting itself. Now, if you're not sure about Purple Sorcerer, you don't really know what sort of stuff they do, there is quite a lot out there that you can grab. There are things on Drive-Thru-RPG right now, as well as just going to the Purple Sorcerer website directly. They're really good. They do some great stuff, and we had a giveaway in association with Purple Sorcerer for our Dungeon Crawl Classics actual play series we did of Nebin Pendlebrooke's Perilous Pantry, which is a 0-level funnel for Dungeon Crawl Classics. So a bunch of our viewers and patrons got some free stuff out of that, which was great. This adventure is, let's have a look. So you've got great artwork from Matt Sutton, Miss Inkthrope. Always get that wrong. The humble villagers of Sungal plead for help. Some mad entity haunts their dreams, shrieking endlessly from the twisted jungle that surrounds their homes. Are their adventurers brave or foolhardy enough to explore the dark places of the great jungle and end this spectral threat? Great ancient treasures are rumored to lay waiting in the twisted morass, but even older threats might be rising to guard them. You can see from the artwork the kind of imagery that you're expected as a GM to present to your party. Visit the cursed village, get lost in the endless tracts of jungle, battle a horde of new foes, many of whom are twisted variants of Southeast Asian folklore. And I believe that basically the creator of Purple Sorcerer Games, John Marr, this is his son, who is not as young as one might expect. There's a picture of Benjamin somewhere here, I think, probably down towards the bottom. But basically his son spent some time in Southeast Asia, learned a whole bunch of folk tales, and has decided to create an adventure about it, which I think is really, really cool. Purple Sorcerer do amazing things. They do a Kickstarter every year, fundraiser every year, rather. They make really great adventures, Dungeon Crawl Classics and old school Renaissance games, and 5th edition as well, let's face it. Haven't got long left on this. Haven't got long left on this at all. 26 hours. I've backed this. I don't run Dungeon Crawl Classics. I do run Morkborg, Mercury, and I won't probably run this in that system, but I might pull the story threads out of this. Like I was saying earlier on with horror, it doesn't really matter too much. I might pull some of the story threads out of this and put them into Symbaroum, for example, because Symbaroum is set in a great forest. So you could quite easily do that. Yoel, have you got any games that any systems that you might look to run an adventure, a jungle adventure in?
A jungle adventure? Should it involve horror or action?
I mean, it's up to you. It was a completely open question. I mean, this is kind of going to be sort of pulp horror, but not horror like Cult and Cthulhu. So probably more like an 80s action movie with horror bits.
Okay, then perhaps, and this is a system you will never have heard of because it's only in Swedish, Chock.
Oh, yes, okay.
And that is the new version of Chock. The old version is Pay City Games Chill horror system. The new one is basically only in name, using the branding. It's a good system. It's quite adaptable. So if I were to blindly say you're going to run a jungle adventure with some pulp and horror, sure, I could use that one. Or I could use Cthulhu as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Cthulhu is so versatile. I mean, I would be inclined maybe even to look at something like Broken Compass, where the system actually is completely incompatible with OSR, in my opinion. It's just completely worlds apart. But the setting probably that would work very well in Broken Compass. So there are a bunch of adventure kind of scenario stylings to Broken Compass, and you could do this as quite an action movie to an extent, I think. But it is going to be a little bit more classic fantasy. DCC kind of waves more towards the Appendix N D&D sort of feel generally. As for the campaign itself, you've got a couple of options. You can just grab the adventure, Dread Specters of the Shrieking Vale, which looks like this, or you can grab the other book, which is the Field Guide to the Great Jungle, which actually includes, you can see it says here, a first level adventure. It includes the other adventure within it. It's not overly expensive. They do have different versions. So they have translated, if you like, the scenario into 5e and OSR compatible, or DCC, I think, as well as a third option. So yeah, so you can see here, if we look at the pledge levels, £8, $10 gets you the adventure in either Dungeon Crawl Classics 5th edition or OSR. And then if you want all of those versions, which you might, depends on what kind of things you run, then it's $20. $20 also gets you the field guide in, I think, one system. And this one will get you the field guide for all systems for $40. Print on demand, which, as we know, normally I hate. They do also have a signed copy with the Dread Patron status. So basically that means if you're in the US, they'll grab you a signed printed copy of the Field Guide of the Great Jungle in whichever system you want. They'll sign it, and you'll be added to a list of the patrons at Purple Sorcerer, which is kind of cool. Purple Sorcerer do amazing things, as I said before. So the price isn't bad. Obviously, though, you still have to pay for the print-on-demand portion. Probably looking in the UK at about £5 or £6. In Sweden, it's probably about $1 million, because at the moment, I think the only printers are the US or the UK, and then you have all the shipping and tax and all that crap on top of it. But it's definitely worth checking out if you like those sorts of fantasy things. Let's catch up with the comments, because we are, in fact, live. So let's scroll back a bit and see what's going on. Jason says, I try and buy both physical and electronic versions of anything I buy. So I'm all for discounts or bundles. Freya Lugan's PDF print and VTT bundles are favorite. Yeah, they're really good. If you're a big VTT fan, they definitely are good. What else we got? Yeah. Hi, Rich. Really good to see you. It's quite possible that some will use one of the many tricks used in pricing, something like relative bias. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. So that's where you kind of manipulate someone into buying the product that you want them to buy by making it appear less value for money to choose another option. This is like, for example, when the second most expensive product is significantly less expensive than the premium product. So most people will buy that second most expensive product, and then 2 or 3 idiots will buy the premium one, which is actually probably got a massive profit margin compared to the others.
And most of all, the object is to get you to not buy the cheapest product.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that might be even more expensive to produce.
Yeah, that's quite often at a loss, isn't it?
Yes. In electronics, this has been used a lot.
Yeah.
A printer manufacturer, not going to name the name. I've been working selling electronics equipment, so I've noticed a lot of this. A print manufacturer had 2 models that looked exactly the same. One model printed quicker than the other. It didn't cost much more, but like 50 quids more. And it turned out it was basically the same machine, but it installed extra equipment to make the cheaper one slower.
That's amazing.
And Apple has been for a long time, the best ones at this price diversification, where you as a customer make the upsell on yourself.
Yep.
If you take the MacBooks when they were in plastic, they were always 2 white and 1 black modeled out at the same time.
Yep.
The cheapest white never had, at that time, the combo. It had a combo drive. It could read DVDs but not burn them. But if you pay 200 quids extra, you got the combo drive.
Yeah.
And
Super drive.
If you pay, and if you paid a lot extra, you got it in black, because then you could show that, look, I have the black one.
You got the most expensive one, exactly.
Yes.
And those sorts of things still happen. Like
it's brilliant.
Even with the Valve Stream Deck that's coming, like the most expensive one has got a different color case, so people know straight away which one to steal when you're on the train. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, where were we? The wrong one. There we go. Dread, Specters of the Shrieking Vale, Purple Sorcerer, Dungeon Crawl Classics 5th Edition, OSR, Jungle Adventures, first level. Check it out. I really like it. I've backed it. Maybe we'll run it at some point on the stream. I won't be doing that because I don't run DCC, but we know a few people who do. And it's going to be great because Purple Sorcerer, I would take this with a pinch of salt, although we've never been sponsored by them. I would go so far as to say that I've never seen Purple Sorcerer put out a bad product yet. So there you go. I think their quality control and their standards are very, very high. Let's jump on. We've not got a lot of time left, so whilst we can, let's talk about this. Chronicle of Ascend. I don't know how long this video is, but let's give it a quick look. See, 2 minutes.
Welcome
we might not watch
to
all of this.
Tamashii, a 1 to 4 players scenario-based game set in a cyberpunk universe where things went down for humans. The Ascend Company, driven by an aggressive AI, took over Japan. Their goal is to get rid of humans and create a better world. Yours is to survive and then defeat Ascend. Choose one of the available survivors who come with different abilities, body modifications, and ways of dealing with hostile AI. During the game, you will visit different locations and arm yourself with many augmentations. You will also gather different types of data on your compiler, manage the data, set specific algorithms, and launch those codes to apply a variety of effects. It's a satisfying experience that allows you to set up powerful combos. Your abilities may require specific types of tokens, so carefully choose which type you want to add to your available pool, just like you choose a card in a deck building game. The combat will eventually happen, but you can prolong the time of peace. Each action leaves a trace that AI can follow. The track on your player board represents the risk of being found by AI drones. It's often wise not to use all of your actions, as you may then reach a certain threshold that will result in an unpleasant encounter. Humankind abandoned using organic bodies in order to survive. Get yourself a synthetic one that fits your playstyle. Want to avoid enemies by using advanced stealth and hacking skills? Jump into Rogue's body. Do you crave carnage and want to taunt your enemies with your mighty presence? Slasher's body is waiting for your consciousness to slip in. There are lots of other different and powerful archetypes for you to try. The goal of each scenario is different. It can be apparent from the beginning of the game, or yet to be discovered later. Missions are unique and vary in many ways. Some of them are cooperative. Some require you to compete with other survivors. And in some, you must prevail alone. When you successfully finish a scenario, you will be rewarded with new unlockable game elements so that the game will evolve and continue to amaze you. There is much more to discover in Tamashii. Back the game now and save your people from Ascend's threat.
Yeah. So that's a thing.
Things looking at that video popped into my mind.
safe to discuss, or were they entirely?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Let's put it this way. This is Awaken Realms, right?
Yes, it is, but this is the Awaken Realms Lite brand. So what they are saying, the marketing spiel, is that Awaken Realms Lite is an imprint for games that are less heavy, so more one and done than their other games. So when you have things like Etherfields or the upcoming ISS Vanguard, or even to a lesser extent Nemesis, they're quite heavy games. There's quite a lot to them, and the intention, at least the original intention from what I can understand, is that it's supposed to be a much easier game to play. I actually think this looks like quite a crunchy game. I think that, to me, it looks like there's probably quite a lot of rule learning to do. But it is an Awaken Realms game, so we do have an idea of what the quality is going to be like.
Yeah, and what surprised me looking at this video, because I've only looked at the starter page, didn't even start a video. As far as my experience with Awaken Realm is, basically it's a company that make minis, and they created games to have the mini sales.
Yes.
And those games were great, but they were a way to sell the minis.
Correct.
And I saw standees in this video.
Yes, so that's a really good point. By itself, I think it's a standees based game. So you'll get your boards, standees, lots and lots of cards, right? And then the stretch goals, you get some additional stuff, maybe some miniatures. But you're completely right. That's the core pledge at $66. Now, what's different is if you go for the euros, 102 euro pledge, then you get this box in the front here, which I don't know if you all can see, is the miniatures pack. And I'll be honest, I am interested in this for the miniatures. You know, I spent quite a lot of time learning some Japanese martial arts when I was slightly more healthy, I guess. When I got up and moved around and things before I became desk bound. And I've always had an interest in kind of Japanese stylings anyway, plus of course cyberpunk. You know, I'm a nerd, so I've read William Gibson and all that sort of stuff. So I really love the aesthetic here, and I'm just padding whilst I scroll to get to the images of the miniatures. So there are miniatures, but they are, I believe, in the miniatures pack. You can kind of see bits of it here. I thought they had an actual breakout of what's in the miniatures pack, but I'm clearly wrong. There we go. Is there anything in that? There we go. Yep, there we go. So 18 standees and tokens into beautifully crafted miniatures. And this is what interests me. I think these are really fun.
The minis from Awaken Realms always looks freaking amazing.
Yes.
And here is where you and I differ, because I can't paint minis for the life of me.
I can't paint it either.
There's a difference between your definition of can't paint and my definition of can't paint.
Yes.
My minis looks better unpainted than when I have touched them. So
I understand your
standees for me
is better.
Looks better on the board. Then I can really appreciate the minis like this from Awaken Realms, because the minis themselves are gorgeous. But I would use them unpainted. And having a game like this with standees instead, I love it.
And I think what's really interesting with Awaken Realms generally is you can normally get, and they haven't offered it yet, a sun drop as well. So what I would probably do, even though I do paint, I'm not an amazing painter, is I would probably do at this point the same that I did with ISS Vanguard, which is to order these with sun drop, because I want to play the damn game, right? And some people are quite happy to play a game with miniatures that are half painted or that have only been base coated and they haven't even started properly painting yet. But in my experience, the moment you get your finger oils, if you like, on the miniatures when they're not yet finished, you can actually sometimes see the impact that can have, because it can erode your base coats or whatever. I actually think, Yoel, that you would be surprised at what can be achieved with some very basic techniques. And one day we will actually hang out in person and we can do that. Because my standard of painting, my baseline is, as long as it looks marginally better than when it was just monocolor plastic, then I'm happy. And it doesn't take a lot to do that. But that's a discussion maybe for the after party or for another time. The actual, so the product itself, I'm not sure I like the system. I'm not sure that the actual game itself is one that I would enjoy, but I think you get a lot for your money. We know that Awaken Realms have done a lot to improve the quality of their games, and by that I mean the gameplay. I don't mean the actual box, because everything that Awaken Realms puts out is very high quality in terms of production values. It looks beautiful. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. They've even got a high quality plastic insert, and we all need one of those in our lives. So yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think the miniatures are great as well. So those of us that are miniature painters, just to say people who paint miniatures, not people who are very small that paint things, I think we'll have a lot of fun. You know, throw a bit of zenithal priming on there, spray the whole thing black, white from above, and then just some inks of whatever fancy you like. So if that's speed paints, or if it's contrast colors, or I use a mixture of scale 75 paints. That's my scale 75 instant color box there, and secret weapon washes, or just going a traditional method and using actual paints watered down, whichever method, or using your airbrush if you can be bothered to mark it all out, which no. You're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully they'll do a sun drop so that you don't even have to worry about that. You can just get something that's tinted and base, kind of base color coat like white, and then with zenithal priming, and then just some ink on it to bring out the highlights. That would be perfect. That would be what I would use, most likely get, because I don't really have enough hours in the day. Check it out. It's on GameFound. It's on GameFound with 17 days left. They're adding stretch goals every day. They've clearly pre-planned all these stretch goals, so they're just using the stretch goals as a hype machine. Really, not very many of those have been based on anything like getting to a certain level. There have been a couple based on a number of backers, but nothing that makes you feel like they're trying to milk it, shall we say. You know, there's not anything based on the kind of the call mini or not idea of, if you put all your money into this pot right now and buy all of our add-ons, then we'll give you more things in your stretch goals. It doesn't seem to work that way, but there will probably be more financial add-ons later on, because that's what Awaken Realms does. We are nearly at the top of the hour. Quick reminder again, first of all, if you like the look of any of the things that we've talked about, please do hit the like button, please subscribe, ring the bell if you're on YouTube. Please tell us in the comments what you think. What do you think of the projects that we've looked at? Is there one that you really like the look of? Are you one of the developers? Would you like to come and talk to us about your product on the show? Let us know. Come and talk to us on Discord. The link is down below. We are going to, in just a couple of minutes, head on over to Twitch. So if you're watching on YouTube, come over to twitch.tv/the Dark Orb UK. I will find the banner here. There we go. So we're heading over now, and hopefully we'll be joined with a couple more patrons, and we'll just talk about stuff for a while. And before I go, just a quick shout out again to Free League. They've got the fantastic offers on their store and incentive to buy a few things, in that they are passing 50% of their proceeds on to funds for the crisis in Ukraine. So if you are a Free League fan, please check out their web store, freeligan.se, and see what they've got. If there's something that you were going to buy anyway, then throw some money into Ukraine at the same time. Exactly. Yeah. And if not, then, you know, maybe consider just contributing directly to one of the Ukraine funds. If
I just remembered another physical product you can buy that will contribute to Ukraine, and that is actually from Awaken Realms.
Okay.
They had surplus of their Kickstarter for this War of Mine, where, if I'm not mistaken, 100% of the revenue were to go to Ukraine.
That's really cool.
I don't know how much they have left of it, if it's all sold out. I think I saw it a couple of days ago. They mentioned it, but it deserves a mention here as well.
Absolutely. So check that out. And we will see some of you hopefully over on Twitch. And if we don't, then we are back. I think we've got a live stream next Wednesday already, or is it the Wednesday after? I need to look at a calendar. Oh no, it's the Wednesday after. I was going to talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics. 2 weeks we've got Dungeon Crawl Classics. We'll be here next week on Friday for Kickstart Your Weekend, and until then, take care everyone, and I hope your dice rolls are way better than mine. Cheers everyone. Bye.
See ya.